Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. Some days I feel skinnier than all the other days. Sometimes I can't tell if my body belongs to me. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell. I want to taste consumption. Breathe faster to waste oxygen. Hear the children sing aloud. It's music till the wick burns out. Be carefree lately, yeah. Just kicking up daisies. Got one too many quarters in my pockets. Count 'em like the four-leaf clovers in my locket. Untied laces, yeah. Just tripping on daydreams. Got dirty little lullabies playing on repeat. Might as well just ride around the nursery and count sheep.
Heaven just knows what it was. Will I go back to the place where I belong? Everyone could break my heart, but I try my best to not fall apart. And I found it hard to let go. The memories keep me together. Gotta fight till the end, no pressure, no pressure.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever it is in the world you are, and welcome into the Anti-Stall Racing League IMSA Series, round number 7, from arguably the best racetrack in the world, Suzuka. You can fight me on that one. And I, as always, am Ava, joined by the ever-lovely Biggles, and our producer behind the scenes, Gerard. How we doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Looking forward to being here in Suzuka, of course. I was just having a couple of shots of sake, actually.
Oh yeah,
and hanging out at the sushi train. The sushi train's great. If you never had sushi train, that's because you can watch all the little plates of food going around and around and around. Well, tonight you can get to watch all these cars go around and around Suzuka. Yeah,
and a great circuit as well. It's, I think, for multi-class, quite an interesting choice, given the fact that it's normally quite a tight and technical circuit. But hey, I mean, it's gonna provide action in that sense, and what's gonna provide even more action than that, and you guys may already be able to see it happening on the screen, is it's already starting to get a little bit dark. So we might have a night race on our hands here at Suzuka, which, considering the track doesn't have a lot of lighting itself, gonna make things a little bit tricky, you would imagine. But on our screens at the moment, we are watching, I believe this is Farron going around the circuit at the moment.
I was muted there for a second. Sorry, I was going to ask you about the local time there from our producer, so we keep an eye on that one. And hello to the 43 LMP2 car there of Draken. I think that's Draken? Hello. In the chat.
And you know, Biggles, one thing that we like to do around here is obviously think about who's going to be doing well regarding GT3s, hypercars, and LMP2s. Maybe even get a little bit of a lap time prediction. Now, based off of the GT3s would probably be the best way to do it, unless you have an idea on what the GT3s can do before anyone sets a lap time. You got any ideas?
None, sorry. No. None. Yeah, once again, because we're going to these new tracks with these new cars. Some of the new cars, of course. So that's an interesting thing. We've now gone, you're touching on Answer Ava for what we had previously last week and so forth, where we kind of do those predictions once again on the hypercars, their times, and the predictions on the LMPs. And I think once we get the GD3s first, once they set these times down now for their qualifying, then we can start crunching numbers, right? To try to work out what the other two beasts will be performing.
A little bit of an off-track there. A little bit of an off-track excursion for Luigi Nespolino. I believe that was through the second Degner, just before you go under the bridge, or the flyover, before 130R. Beautiful corner. And, you know, Luigi Nespolino is a person who I expect to do well. I mean, he's part of the Leo Racing team. The Leo Racing team has been dominant so far within the GT3 category, so, you know, I think, as always, we will see the Audis up near the top of the Leo Racing team. We'll see the Ferraris up near the top as well. The likes of Hakon Grebstad currently setting purple sectors in sectors 4 and 5 before moving his way through the Casio Triangle to end the lap. And, you know, as a sort of multi-class circuit, I think Suzuka is one of those that is going to lend itself to a lot of risks being taken in order to minimize the amount of trouble that these GTs give you, or these hypercars give you if you're in the lower class, and potentially that will make things a little bit spicy, especially going through the S's on the first few laps, and when everyone's really packed up tightly, when everyone's really just trying to push and just try and settle into their own race, to then be having the S's as part of the, I would say, problem, but I don't know. We'll have to work it out, see what happens, see where these cars end up sort of filtering themselves. I would imagine that in the first sector, at least, it's going to be pretty difficult for these hypercars and LMP2s to find their way around GT3 cars, with obviously, you know, not really a lot of places to overtake. I mean, outside of turn 1, if you're feeling incredibly brave. And then through the S's, I mean, you're almost adopting the good old saying of if you go on the outside, you've chosen to probably send it into a wall. So, something these guys need to be aware of, for sure. But I'm wondering, if you've ever seen any races around here, Biggles, have you ever sort of watched multi-class around here, or has it mainly been sort of F1 type things and open wheelers?
Just F1, really. Yeah, not multi-class around here, so it'll be very interesting to see. Certainly as it gets more into the evening, as you can see, all the headlights are on the cars.
We'll say it'll be quite difficult for us to try and figure out who is who. Of course, we have the wonderful overlays so we can see what is going on, but in terms of everything else, I mean, it's going to be difficult for these drivers, I imagine, to find their braking zones, especially at the hairpin and through the Degners, because the Degners go underneath, you know, tunnels, and it's going to be incredibly dark, and you'll probably turn in too late, hit the curbing on the outside, and end up maybe facing the wrong way once or twice. But just going on board with Fabio Ponta here through Spoon Curve. Now, a corner I think a lot of people underestimate at first glance when they look at Spoon. It's an off-camber, tightening corner that seems to take any grip away from you if you dare step off the racing line through there. A little bit sketchy through 130R, almost flat out in qualifying trim for these GT cars. I wonder if anyone is taking it flat out. Obviously that is the goal, to take 130R flat out the best you can, because that is how you'll find the most amount of time. I'm surprised he didn't really go for the shortest run to the line either, which is something you normally see a lot of the drivers do, especially in GT3, as they hug the inside line out of the edge of the Casio Triangle and run that all the way to the outside until they hit the line, basically. And then they'll go back to the racing line and set themselves back up for T1 again.
Yeah, just bear with me for a minute. Might have to step in for a second there, Gerald, our fantastic producer, to keep Ava occupied in the booth there for a minute. We'll sort something out.
Does this mean I just need to continue talking like I've done all day so far and just continue doing what I do? Just chat absolute nonsense.
You're pretty good at that.
I will fill gaps where needed.
I'm pretty sure you could probably do it for an entire 24-hour race.
I would say yes, but I feel like I'd need a break at some point. Well, otherwise my voice would go. Especially considering I'd get very excited halfway through it, I imagine. It's hey, what can I say? I love racing, so, you know, when you have a passion for it, you know, you just want to get that out there and show that you've got it, and show that you have that love for all things four-wheeled. Unfortunately, for those of you who also enjoy the two-wheeled, you'll probably be disappointed to find out that I too am not a fan of the two-wheeled machines. I think you lot are absolutely mental, but in a good way.
Well, considering I don't drive a car in real life, but I do ride a bike, I'm offended.
Well, look, I'm gonna be honest, I would rather have a roof over my head and four wheels rather than two wheels, no roof, and get wet and whenever it rains, without choice.
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
It's just one of those.
I can't really argue with that, can I, to be honest?
You've got your lid, but how waterproof is it, really? And, you know, one thing that I will say, going back to the actual topic at hand here, which is our qualifying, of course, for our GT3 cars.
Oops.
Starting to get into the 1-minute 58s for our quicker drivers. And speaking of Suzuka as a circuit and during qualifying, I definitely feel like it's a circuit where you very much find out who is a good driver and who is a great driver. Because Suzuka is so... It feels like it's such a driver's circuit in that it has such a flow to it that if you mess up one part of the circuit, chances are the rest of your lap from that point on is also going to suffer.
Yes,
and you could
especially
make
after
the...
turn one.
Yeah.
After turn one, you know, if you don't have a good entry to that first part of the S's, then the rest of it is just screwed.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the other thing as well is I feel like if you mess the S's up, you go down so far on time, you then push harder to try and make back that time. So through, for example, Degner and through the hairpins, you might overshoot the braking zones, perhaps clip the curbs a bit too much, especially through the Degners, and that can actually cause more problems than it would have solved had you not had clipped the curb so aggressively. And then again, through Spoon, you can overdrive these cars into these corners, and yeah, they'll grip, but they won't necessarily have the same amount of traction that they normally would if you just sort of take a moment, just get it through the corner and just focus on the exit instead. Yeah. And, you know, considering Spoon, as we mentioned, was one of those off-camber kind of interesting corners in where it falls away from you the further away from the apex you are, as opposed to trying to think of an example off the top of my head of a circuit that has a in camber corner. I think actually turn 1 at Suzuka is also the same. As you drive into the apex, the actual road will help the car grip and stick into the inside, similar to that of the carousel as well. The carousel, obviously, you'll see a lot of the GT3 cars try and keep within that. You can almost call it a banking, effectively, because that is just the fastest way to go around the carousel, and it keeps the car gripped, because it doesn't have to work as hard to maintain on the inside of the corner as it would going the long way around the outside. And these are things that I think a lot of people are going to need to think about, potentially set their car up for. as especially when it comes to the traffic. For example, a hypercar trying to overtake a GT3 through Spoon could potentially try it around the outside, but he's going to have to be aware he's going to have to take Spoon slower than he normally would, which possibly makes him think twice about the move. And all these things are going to play a part in deciding the order in the end of the day for the race here at Suzuka, especially considering the GT3 cars. I mean, you're seeing how close they are for first and second, then it drops off a little bit to Hakon Grebstad in P3, then Luigi Nespolino in P4, again starting to get tight once more. So it's, I believe, Leo Racing 1, 2, 4 at the moment versus...
Yeah, well, I'd expect this to be a track that a lot of the higher iRacing guys, a lot of the sort of veterans of iRacing will know very well. It's been on iRacing for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So I'd expect to see, the people that we think are going to be at the top on this track, as opposed to a newer track where it might be a bit more mixed up.
Yeah, absolutely. Circuits like, for example, Manicourt, and I mean, have we confirmed Haref at this point, considering iRacing have basically gone out publicly on Twitter and shared that is definitely being scanned and in the works of being developed? I'm sure that is going to shake things up as well. Maybe some people have some experience in some older sims, but Haref hasn't been around in a long time in terms of actual sims.
I have no idea what that track is.
Well, we do know the person who has not been following motorsport for a very long time, and that is why they are a producer, clearly.
I'm just waiting for Bahrain and Kyalami.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if Bahrain would come into iRacing yet.
They're back. They're doing Bahrain, are they?
No, well, we don't know, but I'm waiting for that. I really hope we get Bahrain at some point. And of course, Kyalami as well.
I don't understand, because it's the closed tracks, so they can laser scan them anytime they want, really.
If they pay enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Keep in
might be
mind,
some part
I
of the
think
issue.
Motorsport games probably have that locked up with all of the rights to WEC and anything else, really. And of course, your opinions on that may may cause some controversy.
The P2s have just come out as well.
Wow, GT3 already done.
Yeah.
Hey, I will say, when you talk absolute nonsense for 15 minutes, it feels like it was only 5.
I mean, I'm sure our audience don't think it was absolute nonsense. I'm sure it was very informative for them, and they definitely didn't fall asleep during that time.
No, not at all, not at all. To take you through some of the important things to note in terms of the GT3 lap times, just while the LMP2s make their way out on circuit for the first time. The GT3 pole time was set by Alessandro for the Leo Racing team as a 1:58.5, followed off by Fabio Ponta, Hakon Grebstad, Luigi Nespolino, and Stefan to round out your top 5. So it goes Ferrari, Audi, and then a glorified Audi and a Lamborghini.
What's a glorified Audi?
The Lamborghini.
How's that a glorified Audi? I don't understand.
So effectively, the Lamborghini and the Audi share the same chassis, except one has a longer wheelbase. And I'm pretty sure the Lambo is the one with the longer wheelbase. That's why I say it's a glorified Audi. I believe they even share a similar engine as well, so they are very similar in terms of how they are as cars. Because of such. I think they only have slight differences just because of the wheelbase difference. Anyone who has driven both can probably give maybe a bit more information as to the actual differences between the two, but as far as my knowledge goes, that's about what I know. It's just a wheelbase difference, and that's it. Which, is something that these LMP2 drivers aren't going to have to worry about, because there is only one chassis, one wheelbase option, and if you don't like it, well, you have to deal with it. Definitely, I think LMP2 is a more driver's category. It's more so decided by what drivers practice the most and put in the most amount of effort, because that very much will show in general just car performance. You know, if you can extract the most out of the same chassis that everyone else is on, then you're going to be faster than everyone else because you're pushing the car harder. But keeping
Let's
it
see.
safe.
Yeah, you're right. I want to see about Mr. Young Aiden Young, because he's been really improving lately, hasn't he? And once again, I think he put it on pole, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken, for the No Limits sim racing team last week.
I
think
yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's see if he can convert that into. Did he get a podium? I think he did. I'm just really mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see if he can convert that in again to. So obviously, I think he's been really putting the practice in. That's right. Remember, he said he's been motivated a lot by his dad. Remember, his dad's been giving him a ton of motivation, I believe, is what he said. So that's what's really paying off for Mr. Aiden Young right now. So
I wasn't around for the interviews last week. Had to head off early, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, as I say,
Joe remembers that. I think he was mentioning about that. Let's see. He's going to be putting in one of the first times as he crosses the line here. We'll go the quickest at the moment. We'll see if the other drivers can do it. No, and Mark Cunningham. James does. 147 flat now, so I'm thinking probably the drivers can get into the 46s for sure now.
yeah, and it's looking like it's already really close for a lot of these drivers. And the other thing as well is keep in mind, as the track gets darker, as Dylan van der Lans, what a lap from him, 146.479. That is very impressive. And as I was mentioning, the thing with the track is, as it gets darker, you'll start seeing the track also get colder, and potentially the lap times come down even further because of that. At the moment, I'm not sure if we can get it on the screen. Indeed, there it is. The track temp right now is 24C with an ambient of 24C. Now, we're expecting that to go down as the race continues. At the moment, we are just around about 5:30 local time on the circuit, so feel free to convert that from Japanese time into whatever time zone you live in to figure out what time that would be wherever in the world you are.
It's the land of the rising sun, my friend. It's
is.
wherever you are in the world. Well, it's a couple of hours just off my time zone here in the Americas.
I think it'd be 4 a.m. for us here in the UK.
Yeah. It would be...
yeah, definitely right. With a 45-minute race. Well, hang on, we still got a bit of qualifying time to go. Yeah, we're definitely going to be in the night time.
Yeah.
For sure. Well,
Nice.
with those track temperatures, we'll keep an eye on that. It's currently 24 degrees. Expect that to drop. How's that going to affect the performance of these cars? Should they get a bit quicker or a bit slower?
I reckon faster overall. I think these cars definitely benefit from being able to push harder, obviously, because the tires themselves will get to that peak and won't overheat, as they may be prone to do at, higher track temperatures. I believe there is a peak sort of performance window that you kind of want to be in, but I believe in iRacing it sort of doesn't matter as much on the lower end, as we just see Matteo sending it a little bit too hard into turn 1, and an example of probably not what to do in turn 1 if you want to try and find some time. Quite easy to do though, and of course sending it into turn 1 a bit too quickly, because you want to... I mean, a lot of these cars probably not even braking for turn 1, they're braking partway between turn 1 and turn 2. So, could possibly upset the car doing it. That'd be interesting.
I feel for you out there, Neil. Neil's saying racing not well and a sore back. Ooh, that's not good when you're sitting in a racing rig, or if you're sitting in a racing chair or something. Well, mate, I got an ear infection kind of thing at the moment, so that's what you might hear a little bit of an echo every once in a while, as I don't want to put my headphones on. So I can feel your pain, mate. I got a sore ear, you got a sore back, we're all in pain somewhere along the line. Hopefully everybody else is healthy, of course.
Yeah, I've recovered off of my illness that took me out for near enough a month, so...
Wow. Yeah.
We're living.
I think we're over it, aren't we? We had all the whole COVID thing. Everybody come down with generally the COVID, or come down with something during that. So yeah, that's it. That should be our sickness done, and for the rest of our lives, no more.
Yeah.
We got enough.
No more, please. I want to just be able to just live my life again.
You can see some purple, so there is definitely finding some more track time around here. Connor and James on pretty impressive laps with those mini purple sectors, but
Let's see how
being
tight
a
he
pretty
can
long
stay
track.
into Spoon.
Yeah, one mistake.
That's not going to be it. Not clipping the inside there of Spoon and really getting onto the higher part of the corner is going to really suffer on the lap time. Wouldn't be surprised to see a yellow here, and indeed it is. It's Spoon is a tricky beast, that is for sure, because you want to carry as much speed as you possibly can through it, of course, but the more speed you carry, the more likely you are to understeer, and the moment you start understeering through Spoon, it is a bad time all the way, as we're seeing Connor do the same thing that I thought a lot of the GT3 guys were going to do, as he does improve his lap time into the 146s. Now, the second driver to do so, I believe, as James Ebram will come across the line. And will this be a 46 as well? Yes, it is. Everybody improving now into the 46s, potentially.
Yeah, Dylan won last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, did
Yes,
he
did. Yeah.
Did he do the one stop last week, or was it? Was it
Gerald,
close?
do you remember?
Anyone remember?
I can't remember
anybody in
what stops
chat?
were like last week. I'm
Anybody in
pretty
chat?
sure
Yeah.
everybody did 2 stops last week. Like, yeah, I don't remember us commenting on anything that was shorter than 2 stops.
But of course, that is something that at least Dylan has tried before. Seems to be something he's quite often looking to do, is the one-stop strategy. And if he potentially qualifies behind James Ebram, if James gets a move on, as a little bit of a mistake, so maybe not this lap, and indeed he pulls over, knows the lap is probably done at that point. Still has a little bit more time left, only about, what's that, 5.5 minutes? At the rate you're going, you could probably get in 3-4 laps.
Yeah,
before
true.
the-
Well, that'll give us a little bit of time for everybody in the chat, of course, to go out there and give us your guesstimations of the hypercar times. Then we've been. What have we been saying usually in the past? Well, a longer track, you say there's probably what, 5 seconds difference?
So normally the way that I look at it is the times are normally around about 5 to 6 seconds faster for the hypercars. At a circuit like this, where there's a lot more medium speed corners, especially through the S's, not a lot of big traction zones for the hybrid to really sort of pull away. Maybe out of Spoon and down into 130R is where you would find the most advantage from that, and coming out of the Casio triangle.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah, you mentioned because of the turbo.
Yeah, the hybrid system may not be able to work as well here. Potentially, I could be proven wrong, but I'm expecting probably 39's quali pace. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it be slower than that.
I think I might like to say it'll be a little bit quicker, actually, I think.
Really?
I think the hybrid system really excels at slower corners, and we've got a couple of big ones. We've got the hairpin that leads into a few faster corners, so I think that's a place where you can really gain a lot of time. Then you've got the final chicane, which is then flat after that. So if they can get the acceleration like really perfect with that hybrid system out of those 2 corners, I think we're going to see quite a lot of gain.
So you in the 139s? What do you pick? What are you predicting?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I agree with you. I'll say 139s.
All right. I'll go 140s.
140s.
140s. And just our fantastic, hopefully our Stuart is here today. So if our racing Stuart is listening,
Give us a wave.
race control, yeah, give us a message, test message up there. You got time during the qualifying? Just to check 1, 2. Benjamin on the mini purple sector.
It is lovely seeing the sparks coming off of the car as they go through the Degners. That's something that at night you're going to see even better than normal, and it's going to look glorious, is what it will. It will look absolutely gorgeous.
As long as the frame rate keeps up, of course.
I love a good night race. I really do. There's just something about a night race. I don't know what it is.
Well, I look forward to Bathurst this weekend, of course, for the iRacing event. Well, I'll be starting at about 5 o'clock in the morning at dark. Pitch dark going into the morning.
Did you watch the real one?
Yes, I did. Yep, that
What
was
did you
close.
think?
That was really close towards the end. That was great. Most popular race that they've had in Australia as far as attendance as well.
Nice. Always
James
good.
is going quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
I
it's
know.
camping. Three major camping areas, and then a grandstand really, and that's it. So that's what you
Through
tickets would be.
130R he goes. Flat out, of course, in these cars. No issues for them. See if he gets the Casio triangle right. Takes the curbing on the inside. Lines himself just straight. Get on the power. Tucks the inside. Hugs it all the way to the line. Does he get pole? Oh, so very close. 146.486. And this is what I mean about turn one. Look at how committed he is already into turn one. And that is almost a picture perfect line from James Ebram there into turn one. As
Yeah, he's like
Yes.
6,000ths of a second of
Yeah.
Dylan, who was improving a little bit, but Dylan may feel safe enough now because it doesn't look like anybody's bringing the threat, unless James can hook up this perhaps final lap that he'll be on for his qualifying.
through the Degner is going to be massively important for him, and you see how much of the curb he's taking. Oh no! Locked up the brakes, understeer. That's not going to be good. He's going to have to pull off and maybe try and go for one more lap, but I'm not sure if he has time to get round before the hypercars get out. Not anymore. That's it. One lap to do it, and it's done and dusted. Unfortunately, James, I mean, he's trying it. He is going out for an out lap. I don't think he's got time for it, though. I think the stewards might call him in.
I think you're right. There are some people saying on outlaps, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough time, unfortunately. He'd still be happy, of course, he'd be starting on the front row next to Dylan.
And
If that
he
doesn't
knows,
change. And that's an opportunity, of course, going into turn one, isn't it? Get another takedown.
Yeah. And he knows that he's about similar pace as well. Pretty much identical pace in terms of lap times. I mean, to be 6,000ths of a second off, I mean, that's nothing really, is it? Let's be real. That's what, to the line slightly
Piece of
earlier would
paper?
have been...
Thickness of a piece of paper, maybe, somewhere around that.
Yeah, right about that.
Well, I've said this before. A Formula One car travels a full football pitch in a second. So, and these cars aren't too far off the top speeds of that. So, a full football pitch in a second. So, just do your math on that one if you want to work out 6,000ths of a second.
Let's take a football pitch and divide it into thousandths, and then get 6 of those thousandths, and you'll be there.
Less than the goal area probably, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. That's probably going to be what, an inch of the net, and that's probably about it, if that. As
Yep,
the
that is
hypercars
Yeah,
leave,
hypercars are up.
and they already look so quick on their outlaps. The difference in pace between these hypercars and the LMP2s, I mean, they just look faster, don't they? Mainly because they are, of course, but yeah, they just... The fact that they're lower to the ground as well, it looks like, and, you know, they're not quite as tall, I think gives the better sense of speed.
Let's see if we see some of those sparks coming out of the back of these hypercars soon.
Yeah, how low are they running them? Because we know the hypercars tend to prefer aerodynamics generated through the floor, as opposed to the actual bodywork of the car. So if you can get away running the car as low as possible without actually scraping the floor, then that is probably the setup going to be very good for you. I almost thought it looked like Kevin's door was open then, with the way that the antenna was sticking out on the side. Well, let's see. First lap times will start to come through. I believe Brian will be the first one on a lap, did I see? Brian Loins? Potentially. I believe Alessandro Izzo is the furthest out on track at the moment, followed off by Alessio, then Brian. They're all very close on track, along with Sophia Ridpath. So, interesting. Keep an eye out for this battle, then. Leo Racing versus Altitude Esports. Who is going to bring the fight to who around the Japanese roads? I do wonder if anyone on their qualifying lap is going to, you know, pay homage to Japan and its motorsport culture. Maybe do a little bit of a drift for us in Spoon, potentially. That would be fun. The entirety of turn 1, the entirety of the S's. There's plenty of opportunities for it.
I've seen it before.
Yeah.
It's very much possible.
Obviously, not the fastest way around the circuit, but looks cool. I think you get time deducted for style points. Unfortunately, your race engineers might not be as happy because they'll have to change the tyres, but, you know, it's fine. We're going to probably do that anyway. Interesting to hear Izzo lift on the outlap through 130R for the first time. That's something I wasn't expecting with the hypercars, considering they have a bit more downforce than the LMP2s.
From the look of it, he did a double outlap to heat tyres because he lifted there, but not only that, he was weaving on straights to heat his tyres up, and for the last chicane, he also slowed right down to get the perfect exit.
I think a lot of people are following the same sort of idea, same sort of principle, as a lot of the drivers doing 1 minute 43s, but we would imagine the second laps are going to be significantly faster. I wouldn't imagine these cars being only 3 seconds off LMP2 pace around here. You would imagine the hybrid will help at least somewhat. Going through Degner 1, and then Degner 2, Alessandro Izzo.
It'd be
only
interesting.
Not up through Sector 1.
It'd be interesting to hear from race control what the track limits are on some of these, because I've seen quite a few cars put both wheels either on or over the white lines on some of those exits.
Yeah, just checking with race control if they could check with a message for us. I didn't see one just yet. You guys can confirm. I might have been looking away.
See the line through Spoon. Looks pretty clean. We see that test message.
Yep.
And, you know, I think for track limits, at least regarding the Degners, I think the Degners might be hard to officiate due to the nature of the Degners being quite tight, sharp corners and pretty fast in comparison to, you know, the Casio Triangle, for example, as we see Alessandro Izzo go through it now. Especially on the exit, you'll see a lot of cars use all of the width that they can on exit, as that is not really where you want to be stopping. That was incredibly close. I did wonder whether or not any of those drivers were actually going to hit that car. That would have been an interesting development, as if these are the actual lap times we're expecting, I may have massively overballed it in terms of how quick these cars were going to be in comparison. I did say, however, that with the nature of the circuit having quite a lot of medium speed corners, potentially the pace difference isn't going to be as massive, but I still went for around about 6 seconds, and it looks like the pace difference isn't even that at the moment. We're looking at the moment, between the leader in LMP2 and the leader in Hypercar, it's what, just under 4 seconds? 3 and a bit? Which surprises me a little, if I'm being honest. I genuinely
not just 39s, guys, that you guys predicted. I close up, so I'm a little bit closer at the moment with the 40, but the 42s they're doing. Doesn't look like they're going to go to a low 42. Because Japan here possesses more than half the industrial robots in the world. But today it's man and machine, and man and women, and machine and harmony. They're squeezing their way around this 5.8 kilometer track. With a run of about 320 meters from pole down to your braking point, somewhere around turn 1. And just to let everybody know, of course, well, the average delay, I think, for about the trains here in Japan, about 18 seconds. So there you have it.
Yeah. don't be late for your train because your train ain't gonna wait.
Yeah. And then if you're riding a Tokyo, of course, you might get the people pusher to push you into the train. As they actually have people pushers to push people into the trains.
Yeah, they are a very connected nation, I think, is Japan, and they seem to very much love punctuality to almost a degree that seems, I would say, obsessive, but I don't think that's the right word. It's very much a lot stricter than a lot of other time schedules anyway. You know, normally you look at, say, trains in the UK and it's like, oh, you know, we have like just a 10-minute delay because, I don't know, a squirrel ran out in front of a train.
That's when they're not, well, that's when they're not striking or something like that as well too, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And, but on top of it, because your Japanese fans are absolutely fanatical, as you know. You see them in Formula One where they all just dress up, put their hats on and all that sort of stuff. And this is actually, believe it or not, one of the largest sporting tracks in the world in terms of capacity. You get about 155,000 fans to turn up to watch races around Suzuka, which you can't really, I don't quite sure whether or not Silverstone tops that, but I think might be the largest.
I mean, if not, it'll be pretty close. I mean, Suzuka is a big venue as well in terms of the circuit itself is quite compact. Obviously, with the nature of it being a figure-8 circuit, it has a lot less space requirement. It has more height requirement than a lot of other circuits, but the actual space that it takes up, probably not that much in comparison to like a Silverstone that has none of those crossover elements.
Yeah, because Silverstone being an old airfield built around the old airfield.
Has a lot of space to work with, at least.
With all its different variations, Silverstone has a ton of them. This was opened back in 1952 as a test track for Honda. More for bikes more than anything. That's why it's so, so many curves and stuff like that. Not a massive amount of straightaways. Because it's brilliant for, obviously, those two-wheel machines to go traveling around here as fast as possible. And then, of course, they bring the four-wheeled versions into it over the years. Did you see Rossi was actually, of course, speaking of motorbike legends, Mr. Rossi was racing in the Bathurst on the four-wheel kind. Remember, he did a couple of test runs for Formula 1 years ago.
He was racing with Audi,
Rossi.
One of the Audi teams.
I think so. Maybe.
Because I know there was a team he raced for in a GT3 series where the Audi team adopted the Skechers livery. And that was an interesting choice. I think it was more Valentino brought the branding and the team just sort of went, you know what, you're such a big name, we'll roll with it. And the car looked great, but it was definitely different to see because it almost had this sort of MotoGP styling to it that you don't typically see on a lot of cars. And speaking of liveries you don't see on a lot of cars as well, I mean, we're in the land for it. Japan is crazy with their designs and their art cars and all sorts of weird and wonderful modding as well that happens behind the scenes. And anybody who is into cars should definitely check out Japan's car culture. It's arguably one of the best.
just to butt in on that one, just because of a comment you made earlier as well, their bike projects are just as insane. You get stuff like stretched Hayabusas, and they're just glorious.
And yeah, they started that culture off, remember, of like, so I mean, kind of Europe did as well, but Japan really like tried that culture of smaller engines, not like the American muscle cars, big V8s and stuff like that. They went for very smaller capacity engines, and then just worked everything else around the engine, as you know, massive turbos and all your intakes, your fuel intake systems and everything like that, and your exhaust systems to just try to get the maximum performance out of a little 4-cylinder engine to make it on pace essentially with the 6- and 8-cylinder cars. And that's why Japan was kind of very famous for, and of course Europe started doing that as well. But yeah, it's just super interesting. That's where I got my GTR Skyline, of course, was from Japan. And one of the reasons why too is that in Japan you're only allowed to do a certain amount of kilometers on your car, and then you have to get rid of it. You can't just be clicking up like thousands of like hundreds of thousands of miles on your car. They don't do that. They want to make sure that the car culture, you don't have all these old beat up cars around the streets, stuff like that, in the city like you do in other like Australia and UK and the States and stuff like that, where you got, you know, somebody's car that has all like this blue exhaust puffing out the back there. It's all rusted, wheels about to fall off it. No, you don't see that in Japan. They don't allow it.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, with speaking about the sort of way that Japan is with their cars, they almost allow quite a lot of things to be road legal, provided you can park it somewhere. Provided you have a place to store your car. I'm pretty sure a lot of it is anything goes, because it feels like, I mean, I remember there was, I want to say it was a Top Gear episode that I watched where one of the presenters had gone to Japan and was basically driving an old school Group C Porsche prototype around the streets of Japan that was road legal. And the only reason why is because he could store it somewhere, as well as then, you know, modified it to, you know, have an airbag and whatever else. Safety.
You can't go too fast in them, remember, as well, too, because of the traffic. And I don't do a lot of miles, so, you know, because, you know, it's quicker to go everywhere in Japan with a train, so you're kind of mad if you really want to drive too much. It's most of the time it's just all the taxis and some work vehicles and stuff like that in the cities. And then on the weekend, you take your car out for a spin if you got the money to obviously have a car and store it, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the car culture in Japan ends up becoming more motorsport inclined because of that. And a lot of the car meets happen as well, obviously. You know, they have a big scene over there for not necessarily underground car meets, because I think that's maybe a scene that's, they wouldn't really call it in the same way, but they definitely meet up in a lot of like parking areas and go down sort of expressways and just have fun, just enjoy and share their passions that they've been working on for years. And it, you know, it translates to then how passionate they are about pretty much anything. It seems like Japan opt for the, what's the point of doing something if you aren't going to do it with passion, you know?
Yeah. And there's, because of the streets, because of the not massive long freeways and all that sort of stuff like you have in the States, you have a lot less accidents per se as well too. So even you got the young ones behind the wheel and they beef up their cars, there's not, they get like all the young ones do in Australia and you know, kill themselves or kill other people. Unfortunately, that's just because we're hooligans in Australia. They're not so much in Japan, even though they are, as you said, like to beef it up. But they go to, you know, car parks and things like that, as you said. They don't go out in the open freeways. Anyway, that's enough, I think, of our podcast about Japan. Back to racing itself.
3 hours
the
later.
Italians are up at the top of the timesheets again, and the only Brits that are threatening them there is Tom in the 38 car in P3 and Brian the 92 car in P5 at the moment, and then the rest of it's an Italian duo all the way. Kevin in the P7, the 61 car, and then you got Sophia one co. I think he was cool with me calling him that last time when we had a chat there for the Colombian driver, and Anil, the Scotsman, and Daniel will round out your. Looks like Andrea hasn't yet to set a time.
Juan Paulo actually beats Tom Dadswell to third position, just crossing the line there on the final lap that he was able to do. So nice to see. And Lorenzo Castellani taking pole from Alessio Bernardini right at the end of the session. So interesting to see now how Alessio potentially changes his mindset for how he was going to take the start of the race, considering he was in the pit lane for a little while, so was probably thinking, right, I'm on pole, it's all good, I know how I'm going to take the start, everything's great, and then to be beaten literally right at the end is that's almost an entire change of strategy. Of course, I'm not expecting it to matter too much. I'm sure he had plans for what he was going to do wherever he started, but as we see the absolutely lovely circuit there in the background from our scenic cam. But here are your qualifying results for GT3. Alessandro does take the pole position from his teammate in Fabio Ponta, followed off by Hakon Grebstad picking up P3 with Luigi Nespolino in P4, Stefan in P5 with Ferran in P6, Alvaro Gutierrez in P7, with Petros in P8. Simeon in P9. Lars Van Ryn not setting a lap time in P10, so interesting to see whether or not he has pace around here. I'm sure we will find out as the lights have gone off, unless of course you are on the circuit, in which case your car headlights have definitely stayed on.
Somebody's unplugged all the track lights. Of course, there is no track lighting at this track, but what you're going to see currently in the moment is your LMP2 qualifying results presented by Digital Motorsports. Dylan will take the top of the timesheet with that one, just ahead of James Imbram, Connor Gibb, Aiden Young. A little bit less of his qualifying performance from last week at Benjamin. We got Vessel, Bakima, Mark Hutchinson, Robin Drummel, Mateo Lemuri Ray, and Roberto D. And you can see that on a really competitive time for the other two the drivers down the bottom, but very close. We finished second in the top 6.
After this, we do have, of course, the hypercar standings. Lorenzo Castellani taking pole position in the Leo Racing team with Alessio Bernardini finishing P2 behind him. Juan Paolo Cristini picking up P3 with Tom Dadswell P4, breaking up the Leo Racing team. And followed off by Alessandro Izzo for the last of the Leo Racing team members, followed off by Brian Loynes, who is Tom Dadswell's teammate. So starting behind each other, let's see whether or not they can work their way through. Followed off by the boss man Kevin Stam, Sophia Redpath, Juanto in P9, Neil Ferrier P10, Daniel Segli in P11, and Andrea Frassinetti not setting a lap time, but being involved in the mix, of course, we hope, in P12.
Darling, if I had bought you flowers, would you still be here by my side? Yeah, I thought this moment could be ours, while I'm walking only through the night. You can break my bones, break all the promises, but leave me alone. Don't break my heart. You should fucking stay with him. You should fucking stay with him. Darling, if I had bought you flowers, what if you stayed at home tonight? Yeah, I've been lonely counting hours while I'm getting blinded by the light. You can break my bones, break all the promises, but leave me alone. Don't break my heart. You should fucking stay with him. You should fucking stay with him. Break my bones, break all the promises, but leave me alone. Don't break my heart.
And we are back. Hope you enjoyed that intermission. It was giving us a chance to have a little bit of a break, discuss behind the scenes a little bit more about the information that we can provide to you guys, obviously, watching just, you know, as a whole. And one thing we were discussing is actually the difference in headlights for a lot of the GT3 cars. Obviously, not all of them are following the same rules, but the Lamborghinis and the Audis have orange tinted headlights, which will help hopefully make things a little bit easier to differentiate themselves. But Hypercar will be going green shortly. It's quite a short run to the line in terms of from where they are right now, literally just going through 130R and making it
of course,
all
yeah.
the
I'm
way.
used to Formula One being a 210 run from standing still, but they're going to be doing a standing still. Of course, they're going to be doing a rolling start. And Pedro out there said glad to watch it live. Here was a good conversation earlier. He's going back to his car. And Dadswold said not sure about the language in the song, but I'm sorry, mate, because all I heard was during the song, so I've got the beeper was beeping me. So, yeah, sorry about that. Back here, good luck, Petros, from the driver's the name I can't pronounce out there. But
here we go for the Hypercar start. And already they've gone green. That seems earlier than what I was expecting, but going into turn one, let's see who can make the inside line work for them. Seems like it was relatively clean for the Hypercars so far, but it's on the exit of turn one that you have to worry about. Yeah, I was going to say I saw the headlights, but here comes the LMP2s. Everyone seems to be getting in a good start. At the moment, we can't see really who is where due to the fact that the number plates are so small on these cars. I can't really differentiate who is who with no track lighting. And the GT3s are go, of course. We'll catch you up as to where everybody is in a second. We'll just watch this GT3 start going into turn one. Looks like everybody makes it pretty clean through the first part. Second part of turn one, people still trying to filter their way through. We jump back on board with the Hypercars and then switch to the LMP2s. Aiden Young making up, I believe that's one position off the start already. And Robin Dumal as well, picking up 4 positions off the start, by the way. So I'm not sure whether or not he just got a really good jump or there was some other incidents behind him, but definitely a good start from him already onto the back of Aiden Young and looking to try and make his way through the field. Maybe didn't even have the best qualifying and is using that to his advantage. And you know, one thing that I am going to look for during this race, by the way, is the different top lights on the LMP2 cars and the colors that each person uses. So hopefully with a combination of the top light and the little bit of the livery I can see, I should be able to tell you who is who. That's the aim anyway. Obviously, they do give out the position readings on those number boards as well, so I can hopefully clue you in as to which driver is where. Currently on board with Aiden Young, trying to make his way through and get past James Ebram. There is a crash. We'll just throw you to the replay in GT3. This is in Degner. No, this is going into the hairpin, actually. So they've just gone through Degner 2 now. Let's see what happens here into the hairpin. Bit of an opportunistic lunge. Is he going to spin around by himself? And yeah, does save it, but caught up on the grass a little bit there, and that's typically not where you want to be on the racing line. You want to sort of clip the curb, but not go over it. The Ripath currently in P5, currently being chased down by Kevin Stam, but again, Sophia doing a great job up 3 positions as well, so it looks like there's been a lot of big moves early on and potentially opportunistic lunges and making their way through in the hairpin, possibly the Degners as well. And you know, if you send it early enough in the Degners, people really will have absolutely no chance of fighting you. Severe Red Path trying to chase down those Leo racing cars. We have another replay here, and this is through Degner 2, I believe. Yeah, just on the exit of Degner 2. And Mateo, all out by his lonesome, just getting it a little bit wrong, clipping too much of the inside curb. Car bounces, and of course, due to the nature of those curbs being rather high compared to the rest of the circuit, and round he goes. Thankfully, no one was there to collect him. And our hypercar battle already starting to spread out a little bit. Kevin Stam currently trying to push his way through and maybe start an attack on Sophia if he can get close enough. But of course, with the dirty air through the S's, going to be a little bit harder than usual, you would expect. And Biggles, what are you thinking of the race so far? What are your initial thoughts in the opening couple of laps? As James Ebram, by the way, not sure if we can get on board with him. Potentially going to start a move at some point. Oh, Lorenzo Castellani off as well, by the way. Off at Degner 2. You see him there in the background. Here's what happened. She takes Degner 1, fine brakes on the curbing in Degner 2. Hard into the wall. And that's going to be probably suspension damage. And I wouldn't be surprised to find that that wing is also damaged. And potentially some steering loss as well. You can see the car already crabbing as it goes back to the circuit. But here we go on board with Benjamin in LMP2. Trying to hunt down Robin Dumal. And then those two, hopefully, try and work together to bring us a fight here between Aiden Young, Connor Gibb, and James Ebram. The top three currently. You see literally right in front of this two, who are fighting tooth and nail right now. Benjamin very close. Is he going to send it through Spoon, I wonder? If you can take the inside line on Spoon, you stand a very, very good chance of making it work. He gets the inside for the first part. Stays on the inside for the second part of Spoon. Does he get the run? No, he doesn't. That's a very good defense from Robin Dumal. Very, very good defense from Robin Dumal. Would not expect that. Obviously now, with the slipstream down into 130R, not quite close enough to send it side by side into 130, or maybe just not confident enough to do so. Into the Casio triangle we go. Trying to make sure you don't clip the car, obviously, through here. Want to get as big of a run as you can, because going into turn one, it's going to present you with an attacking opportunity that Benjamin's probably looking to take here. Obviously already starting to weave. Get out of the way a little bit. Going into turn one, let's see. Does he make the move round the outside? Very close between the two drivers. And Robin Dumal is showing off an incredible defensive drive so far. Robin Dumal doing an excellent, excellent job. However, if he keeps fighting like he is, he's going to drop back from Aiden Young. And then he's going to drop back even further from Connor Gibb and James Ebram.
They are, and it's also burning fuel. Remember, I'm going to be expecting pit stops a little bit later on, and this looks like maybe a solo mistake here for the 46 car, because you can see that all his teammates up the road, it just goes a little bit too deep and has to follow the escape road through here. Now onto the grass, and we'll lose those two positions behind as well. Maybe, those two. So there he is, drops us Sophia and Kevin. That went on by.
Mark Hutchinson has joined in the battle for P4. Nope, sorry, P5. And, you know, this is one thing I was worried about. If Robin Dumal keeps fighting in the way that he is, he's going to keep losing time by not being able to take Spoon necessarily as fast, or take the Casio triangle as quick as he wanted to, or even take T1 as quick as he would want to. And it's going to mean Mark Hutchinson can catch up, maybe use the slipstream to benefit himself because he can run his own line. And then they're going to start dropping back from the No Limits duo of Connor Gibb and Aiden Young. Of course, Aiden Young wanting to get past his teammate, maybe even wanting to try and overtake James Ebram if they can work together to do so. Major difference between the two cars, by the way, in case you did want to know, is that they do actually run different lights, indicator lights on their roof. So the red HUD lights that you see out in front of the green set is Connor Gibb, and then behind him is, in the green set, is Aiden Young. So, nice little way to be able to tell the two apart, considering they run basically the same livery.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering about that. Do they get to choose those lights as the battle from Kevin's caught the pack there of Sophia? And that's actually bringing everybody else back into play, because look at that. You got the I'd like to say the DRS train, of course, from behind Kevin.
No DRS, but we do have ERS, or at least a system similar to it. So, Sophia absolutely nailing Spoon, though. It's probably going to give Kevin absolutely no chance to really attack, because...
Seems very hard to overtake around here. Well, maybe proven wrong on that one, as we're watching side by side between Benjamin and Mark. And Robin, and my apologies. That's Robin and Benjamin there, and well, there's Mark in the background.
Hairpin. So incident on lap 3 involving cars 8, which is James Ebram, and car number 31, which is Connor Gibb, is currently being investigated. Now, I would imagine that was how we saw James Ebram get past. So maybe something involving those two that was deemed not right. As the Japanese would say, and a moral penalty, as opposed to a moral one. And there's always something that you try to avoid is the contact if you can. As very close there. As oh dear, Petros. Unfortunately, when you have an LMDH car all the way on the rear of you, you're not really going to find many places to go.
I'd be pulling off the escape road right now as you get your temperature back up, because everybody was charging around to Casio Triangle at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Back to live pitches. And that's not live. That's a tap there. And well, that's because that was a hypercar saying get out of my way. But Stefan didn't necessarily have to. I don't know. That'll be something to be looked at.
That'll be looked at, I imagine. Speaking of, the incident between James and Connor was no further action, so the stewards deemed the incident to be fine, but obviously wanted to make sure that it was being looked at. So if Connor mentions, hey, by the way, did you even look at this incident? I felt like it was a bit unjust. The stewards can say, yep, we did that. And we felt everything was fine. And just look at the sparks from Robin Dumal going through the Degnas and here into the hairpin. Benjamin very, very close to the back end, and as we get into the traffic, we're going to find out how easy is Suzuka to overtake in multi-class traffic. And my question is, my answer is probably going to be very difficult. You would find.
Yeah, it's difficult to overtake just in your own class, let alone overtaking the other drivers in the different classes. I didn't see the sparks, so maybe I haven't got something tweaked on my graphics, but that's good for everybody else out there to see that.
I thought Daniel was going to send one up the inside there. Here it comes, Robin Dumal, and once again, fighting into the Casio Triangle. If Robin Dumal can make this work, he is an absolute legend of the game right now. He is proving that he wants to fight super hard for this P5. And, I mean, I don't blame him. The two are side by side. They're making contact down the straight. This is going to allow... Who's that? I believe that was Mark Hutchinson to make it 3 wide into the corner. And, wow, I mean, now you've brought in Vessel Bekema into the mix as well, due to how hard you've been fighting. And, I mean, this is a dangerous game at the moment. These two are giving absolutely no room. It's looking like a blooming TCR race.
Well, that's what you get here at Any Store Racing, at its finest driving in the classes. They are going for it tooth and nail. There's other battles, of course, in the GT3s as well as the hypercar, but this is the closest you'd have to say. And all this time, Dylan's got and James got a nice, comfortable gap up the road. Just happy to have this battle in their rear mirrors and not in front of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this P2 battle is going to be one that we're going to be watching all the way to the end from how Robin's defensive driving is going right now. His defensive efforts have been stellar. And, you know, you could argue maybe he's being a little bit aggressive as Benjamin maybe makes a mistake or maybe got pushed wide there by Robin. Just as I was about to say, his efforts were seeming rather fair, if not a little bit tough. But Benjamin going wide through the spoon curve, maybe got the braking wrong or potentially didn't turn in enough. I don't know, maybe we can watch a replay back from his point of view and see what happened, but now that means that Mark can make his way through.
Oh, too deep in the background. Who was that?
That was Vessel.
Vessel, yeah. It could have been Mark. No. It probably was Vessel, actually. He's got a little bit too buff.
So here is Benjamin. Yeah, that's a touch, unfortunately. I was just saying how Robin was keeping it nice and clean. A little bit of tough love, bit of a loss of respect there, maybe partway through, but no harm, no foul. Benjamin making his way through past Vessel Bekema already through the S's. And I'm sure he will join back on that fight once again if Robin Duhamel and Mark Hutchinson fight equally as hard.
They are chewing through the fuel and the rubber as well whilst this battling is continuing. It'll be interesting on strategy once again. We're going to be trying to work out when do you think these hypercars and these LMPs are going to box.
Kevin Stam has just crashed. Oh no, let's see what happened with Kevin Stam. This is going through 130R. I'm expecting maybe a loss of traction. No. Casio triangle time then. Oh,
No,
he hit the grass.
It's Casio triangle. Like it's hard one, isn't it? Because you've seen a few people either go straight on there or lock up.
Yeah.
And that drops Kevin, unfortunately, all down to P9 at the moment.
Here we go, Matteo in the LMP2. I see some traffic up ahead, and LMP2 battle. Is this for position? And yep, sent it a little bit too hard into Degner 1, and that's probably where you're going to end up, is ditched on the inside if you decide to maybe not go and commit to it fully. It's hard though, isn't it, to commit fully to a move like that, where if you do and the other guy hasn't seen you, it's going to end in tears for both of you, I'm sure, as Brian.
It will, because it's also, as you know, it's a very difficult track to overtake on. So, kind of, if there's an opportunity, you're going to go for it. But some of these opportunities, you know, there's not much there.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to risk it. But I expect to see a little bit later on. We're still early in this race, of course. We still have about 44 minutes or so of change to go. I think you're going to see a little bit of this frustration creeping a little later on if they've been following a car for 90% of the race, and then they're going to start wanting to see some opportunities where perhaps the door might be closed earlier on them or not. That's what I think. That's what's going to happen a little bit later in the race. You can kind of feel the tension building already, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're only on lap 10. We're only 16 minutes and almost 16 minutes through the race. And, you know, I think maybe some drivers are already starting to get a little bit frustrated. We're going to see now probably Kevin Stam try and make a move on Brian into turn number 1. But no, not yet. Just going to sit back instead, just follow the leader for the moment. As a bit further up the road, that is Neil Ferrier and Daniel Segley battling as well through the S's. A bit hard to overtake. You're probably not really going to make a move there anyway, as Fabio Ponta and Alessandro. This is for the lead in GT3 between the Ferrari and the Audi. And let's see how good is the Audi on traction out the corner compared to the Ferrari. As Juanto, has he had an incident, I believe?
Oh, they have to lift too for the LMPs coming through. The hypercars, I think it looks like going... no, that's LMP2s.
Alessandro Izzo in the Leo Racing Team. Let's see what happened here. He's dropped all the way now down into P10, so behind Tom Dad's
into last of the hypercars. Well, not really last, but here we go. Oh, that contact.
No! Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if he just didn't see the GT3, wasn't aware the GT3 was there, or what.
I think he hit the LMP too, not the GT3.
Yeah, so there was a
The
hypercar.
LMP2 got. That's difficult because all three cars are going into that corner, as you know. Sorry, yeah. It's sometimes you got to be patient, I have to say, don't you? Because especially in those corners, you see it in endurance races. You got to be patient. You got to just lift off a little bit and then just follow them through there, lose a bit of time. But at least you're going to be not losing places if you make a mistake.
Yeah, survive rather than send it and maybe gain a 10th, but potentially lose, 3 laps if you don't make it work, You
see it all the time in endurance races, don't you? I just see it with some teams, some drivers are brilliant at having a little bit more patience. Others, unfortunately, don't, and they end up with 15-minute repairs in the pit box. We don't have to worry about that here today because it's only an hour race.
I was worried then that we were going to see a move from the number 33, potentially a little bit aggressive, a little bit too early. I believe, is that Mark Hutchinson in the 33? It is. Currently being hunted down by Benjamin, so Benjamin's already caught back up to Mark, who has dropped off a little bit from Robin Duhamel. And Ben is, I mean, he's looking like he wants to race, doesn't he? Is Benjamin.
Oh, he has been, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Himself, Robin, and have all been, and Marcus, of course, you can see the pictures in the chat. If you are enjoying it at the moment, this race, of course, for the IMSA series, is race 7 at Suzuka. Hit the thumbs up and like and subscribe if you would like to support any sort of racing. Watching Pedros with a hell of a sim esport and maybe a hell of a time getting around here if he goes a little bit too deep there. Actually, that's the contact. Oh, he's lost it right there. Oh, thankfully, the Leo Racing team managed to just avoid that. Yep, Petros there for the hell of a not so nice time esport racing team. There's those puns coming, as mentioned there out on the chat, that the if you are spotters out there and you are looking at the YouTube feed, you will be delayed. It's just inevitable. A little bit
already,
delayed.
Benjamin made the move on Mark. I'm wondering if we can maybe take a replay of that just while it was off our screens, but the move made, quite easy. Well, we're assuming, because it looks like Ben's already massively made up time, and yeah, a couple of wiggles you see there from Mark. 3 of them. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And that's all you needed from Benjamin to get his way through and move on through the S's. Of course, it's really hard to follow a car.
The wiggle would work if you're in Bathurst, mate, with the Wiggles, of course, for her children's bands that have been around for a while. Big Red Car or something like that they sing. I don't know.
Of course, quite popular in the UK as well. With
you know they are the richest band ever in Australia.
Are they?
Yeah, even over AC/DC and all those bands that come out, Wiggles have made more money. But here we go. We'll go back to the racing action. Yeah, children's entertainment, my Frank. It's a bankroll. It's a cash vault.
Is indeed one of the reasons why we try to keep PG. You know, maybe we can expand the audience. Of course, more younger fans into motorsport means more fans into motorsport in general, and that's a good thing, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, the influx of young people in esports and also venturing into real sports from esports is going to be just a whole new talent, and that's just great because you know motorsports are expensive and real motorsports, of course, are super expensive. If you can get yourself a nice little racing rig and practice and put in some damn good times, and inevitably, I expect to see a lot of the future drivers come from an esports background first. Yeah.
Sponsored moves. I mean, we've seen it with the likes of Jimmy Broadbent, probably the most notable example, or at least the most recent one to do it. I believe Felipe Fraga, or I believe was another one.
Yeah, there's a few now. It's a few now. And these are just the first generation coming through. Wait to see all these next generations coming through. It's going to be, as I said, it's going to be amazing. It's going to bring some super talent out, and without the massive expense of motorsports. So you have at the start, at least to at least have an opportunity, I'd say, rather than if you don't have rich parents or whatever to buy your racing seat through the karting career and all that sort of stuff, then unfortunately not. But this battle's brewing in the hypercar series.
Yeah, and a little bit of a mistake from Neil there is forced him to hold off, and oh dear, here we go. Here comes the train from the lonely GT3. He was just trying to get on with his day and is being swarmed.
Oh yeah, he's got
hypercars.
I feel sad for him because he's got nowhere to go. They're just surrounding him. They're mugging him into the corner, and he's just like, what did I do wrong? It's difficult because does he go off the track and lose a lot of time there? I don't know. I feel for him. He did his best. He couldn't know where to go.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things in GT3 where when you see that many hypercars, and there was a lot of them. I mean, you see how close the battle is now between 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all within a second of each other.
Who was that again? Because I'd have to say, our Microprose livery car. To me, he must feel like Julius Caesar on the Senate floor right now. Everybody's stabbing him.
And there's going to be another one from the Golf livery Lambo.
Leaders are in. Oh, we go.
Everyone's coming into the pits all at the same time. And then
now, this is going to be interesting for the Leo Racing team, remember, because they all got similar pit stops and trying to spot your lollipop man right now with all these cars.
And the thing is, you see the pit lane here is not exactly the smoothest. It's a little bit.
Look how close they are. I mean,
oh no, from Tom Dadswell missing his box.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. That's going to cost him a couple seconds, maybe even a position or two. as we jump back on board with Benjamin, who has already caught up to the back of Robin Duhamel. And hey, if you were excited for the battle before between Robin Duhamel and Benjamin, well, here's round 2 and the gloves are off. Benjamin is converting this from a nice
look at
fair
that
fight.
bump drafting. That's something you don't see too often.
That is.
I was going to say, mate. I was going to say what the wrestlers do. There's no gloves. Oh yeah, in the pit road. Now, I was just thinking nobody could probably stretch these hypercars right to the 30-minute mark. No, because that's an extra 5 minutes time. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, not anymore. If anybody was going to do it, they would have had to have saved fuel basically from the very beginning of this race. And the way that this race has progressed so far, I don't think anyone is saving fuel at any point throughout this race anymore. It is, it is.
Well, what's interesting is the LMP2 cars have gone in. So you got Benjamin and Vessel that have gone in, and that's the same time as hypercars. And you know the LMP2 cars got a little bit more gas in that tank. So are they trying a different undercut strategy for a two-stopper? Or I don't know. We'll find out. Daniel's finally in for the hypercars because he couldn't stay out any longer. He'll be the last hypercar to make a pit stop.
I mean, the way that I see it is, in the hypercars, surely you want to pit where you can find as much of a break in the traffic as possible. Because we've already seen how just one car that you have to go through in, like, the Degnas, for example, can cause a massive pile-up in terms of your own class. Like we saw, how many cars was that? You know, P4 down to P8 within a second of each other due to a GT3 being caught in Degna 1 and then Degna 2 and then the hairpin. So it's like, you go from a gap of almost 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds between each car, and all of a sudden that gap has vanished in 3 corners, effectively. And you're all just trying to make your way through and trying to pick your place, but it's going to be interesting to see. And all of the LMP2 front 5 are into the pit lane at the exact same time. Remember, I believe it was P6 who was Benjamin pit 1 lap earlier. So we'll have to see whether or not Benjamin actually has made the right decision. If he's gotten clean air compared to maybe Mark or Robin, who may come out in a bit of traffic, then he'll have the advantage and potentially even make his way past. So we'll have to wait and see. On board with Connor Gibb and Aiden Young, I want to say that was... I wonder, did they pit at the same time? They did. So racing out of the pits then from Aiden Young and Connor Gibb. Yep. 1 second faster was the pit stop time. Well, I say 1 second faster, it was more like 4/10 faster from Aiden Young, and that's been the difference between the two No Limits sim racing team. No limits between the two of them, of course. That's gonna have Aiden Young take currently the last spot in the podium.
He's looking for another podium.
Yeah.
The young sole American driver on the grid.
He's got the pace for it as well around here, so Connor Gibb is going to have to really just stick with him if he can. And you know, one other thing as well is keeping in mind that we've only had 27 minutes of this race gone so far, so we're not even halfway through, and already there has been drama, and even more of it as Vessel Bekema makes a little bit of a mistake, allows Mark Hutchinson to make his way through, I believe, is the order of events there. But Vessel maybe going to try and go up the inside of Spoon, but wisely backs off. You lose so much time fighting through Spoon, I almost wonder sometimes whether or not it's just worth holding off and attacking into the Casio Triangle instead.
Or
You're never
maybe
gonna...
switch it out for a spork instead of a spoon.
A spork, of course, multi-utility.
Yeah. Get a bit of both worlds. So then again, you got to use some chopsticks in here in Japan.
Yep. You know, chopsticks are something I've always wanted to learn how to use, but
You don't
never-
use chopsticks, man? Oh, that was so much fun. Every time you get Chinese takeout or anything like that, I mean, you're in the UK, my friend. You should be full of Indian food there. I think it's the #1 cuisine now, isn't it? In the UK. It's replaced some of the traditions.
There's back up in the north. Birmingham, they are everywhere. Like, genuinely.
I do miss that in the Americas, mate. Like the good Asian and the Indian cuisines that you get. They're not as popular as what they are over in your neck of the woods or Australia. Here's a replay back of this one.
So this was what we saw the end of between Vessel and Mark. So Vessel makes the move. What happens here? Mark... Actually, no. So that's not the end of what we saw then. That was a different incident altogether through turn 1 after Mark has made the move.
Battle for the hypercars after that pit stops now. Look at that. All behind Sophie. The Sophia train.
Yeah, so
Kevin, Daniel, Neil.
Kevin made that move, keep in mind, and we are on board with Petros going through Degner 2. He's going to go too wide on the exit and potentially spin it, but no. He's fine going into the hairpin. A little bit of a, a little bit of an incident there, but
I think he was trying to get
go wide
to make a decision on where the driver was behind was going to go on the inside or the outside, of course, and he eventually got off the racing line and let him through. Always difficult because you got to try to judge the fast car behind you. You're like, where are you going? Where are you going? You got to be a bit of a mind reader sometimes.
Well, a lot of the, and I'm not sure if they say it in driver's briefing, but a lot of the rules around multi-class is, if you're in the slower class, stick to your line, and when the faster car makes a move, stay on whichever line that you were on when they, make that move. If that happens to be the racing line, stay there. If it happens to be off the racing line, then stay on that side of the circuit. And
excellent. Tom was making it. Well, Tom's using the racing line at the moment, mate. I think to get past, he does squeeze the Altitude Esports 38 car, currently up at a P7.
That was a beautiful move as well. Right up through 130R and use the advantage that the slipstream gives you. Maybe a bit of attack deploy as well. And makes his way past Alessandro Izzo. And now that you've made the move and you've secured it into turn 1, Tom Dadswell really doesn't even have to look behind him. He can focus on what's ahead because the S's, you're never really going to see a car make a move there. So he can now just focus on that, get his car set up for the Degners. If he nails the Degners, then he's probably just going to find time away from Alessandro Izzo as he was fighting the dirty air and possibly a damaged car, because have you noticed, ever since Izzo hit the wall early on in this race, he has not been anywhere near as quick as he was before. Now, not saying that is...
I think you read my mind over because I was about to say the same thing. After that off-track incident, he hasn't had the pace that he had.
Sophia Ridpath unfortunately locks up into the hairpin. That's going to allow Kevin Stam to start taking P3, which would mean, by the way, we'd be interviewing the boss man, which we might have to hold some opinions on on what we say if that does indeed happen. But Sophia's going to try her best to fight back, of course.
Sophia does. Sophia never gives up. If you notice, we chatted to Sophia in the past. She's just on a rampage sometimes. When she finds speed in the car, she ekes out every tiny cylinder as we're watching Alessio, I think. And that's a very slow Alessio. Something's wrong with this car. Oh, it's half speed of a replay. My apologies. It just looked like it's got very, very, very. He's driving at about the same pace I'd be driving this track if it was full speed, but it's not. Let's find out what happened.
Going into the hairpin, he touches the grass on the way in, locks up the brakes, can't turn, and just a little bit of an unfortunate incident. And in that time,
Sophia's got past us. That's why I say you don't mess with Sophia. She's on a rampage.
So through GT3 traffic, I believe, Sophia managed to catch up. They've already passed the GT3 at this point. Full speed through 130R. Are they going to go side by side? They do! What a move being made from Sophia Ridpath. Goes into the Casio triangle ahead on Kevin Stam. Shuts the door in his face. Says, you might be the boss of Anti-Store, but I'm the boss of Suzuka. He's getting out of it, and she is gone. That is... what a move from Sophia. That is one way to insert your dominance around this circuit. Just make the move through 130R. Let your opponent know, I'm gonna make it too wide through 130R, and if you aren't brave enough, you're gonna lose the position.
Have you noticed? I've noticed a trend now with Sophia. It's like she comes alive later into the races. You notice that? Like you'd have to say a little bit of a slow per se starter, or just comfortable to just get used to the car and the temperatures and everything like that, and then all right, now it's time to kick into another gear and bring it home in style, and that's what Sophia does and has done before in the past.
And is Daniel racing for the same team as Sophia, or are they in two different teams? Because I'm not entirely sure whether they race for two different teams, but they have similar liveries, so I don't know if that was intentional or something else is going on as the LMP2 coming out the pit lane. I believe it's Mateo is going to cause a little bit of
there's going to be contact. I knew it. You can see it.
Dadswell and the LMP2. That is very unfortunate. I'm sure that there will be complaints being made about that one, as Tom Dadswell really just wanted to go around the outside of the LMP2.
Yeah, race control message. You could see that writing on the wall, couldn't you, when they were going through the different speeds and different racing lines. We're going to replay that in a second, of course, as well as all the action. You can see currently at the moment the fastest lap times and all the drivers up to your left on the screen, and the interval times, of course, is the gap between them.
Faster than Kevin Stam, then.
Names. Yeah. Yep, you're right.
But Kevin not giving up, even after the move that may have potentially caught him off guard, to be honest. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why the move worked so well. It came in a place that you're not expecting it, Yeah, you're going side by side through 130R, but you're expecting someone to lift, surely, as Kevin Stam overdrives through Spoon, and I talked about it earlier on in this race. I said, if you overdrive Spoon, you're probably going to lose more time than it was worth. And you see already that gap really hasn't decreased that much. Had he just driven his normal line through Spoon, he probably would have been able to stick onto the back of Sophia.
Oh, they're going to catch that GT3 car right in the corner as well, too, so a very lucky break.
Yeah. Any later on that GT3 and it would have been maybe a bit of carnage between the two of them. But watch for Kevin Stam down the straight then, as he has quite a long run. Not as long of a run as another Japanese circuit would have into turn one. Of course, speaking of Fuji.
I was going to say Fuji, right? Yeah, you got that.
Yeah. I think one of the longest straights in motorsport, I think, in terms of
like is
FIA
in
grade
tracks?
1. Yeah, FIA grade 1 circuits. Oh no,
Sophia!
another mistake from Sophia, and
yes, I just saw it caught the end of it. I saw the rear slipping a little bit. I'm like, uh-oh, and that was contact obviously between, I think, Kevin and we're going to have some damage. We'll have to have a look at that
Sophia
in a second.
probably definitely will. That's complete just side on. I mean, I saw Sophia being lifted up, so I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin had nowhere to go and
Sophia
couldn't get stopped in time.
Was it where?
Change of direction.
It's a rear tire, I think, around. Looking at a different game. It's this corner coming up here. So yeah, see on the apron, and then couldn't get the traction out of there, and Kevin got nowhere to go. Bang!
Almost flipped as well. That, of course, would not have been nice, especially if she races in VR, like her name says. She did race in VR. That would very much not have been a nice feeling.
And the car was, of course, reversing back on the track, but luckily she managed to stop it to avoid the other cars coming around the corner to give her a bit of a T-bone.
And here we go, Kevin Stam and the rest of the hypercar crew. That was Daniel Segley making his way through very quickly in a very similar fashion to how Sophia did it, but up the inside of 130R this time instead of around the outside of 130R. You know, I think it is a bit more impressive up the inside of 130 compared to around the outside, but now, unfortunately, Kevin Stam, probably carrying some damage, decides to come into the pit lane for the second time, and I don't think it's going to be enough to go all the way to the end, but it might be just about.
Yeah. Sophia in as well. Well, we don't know if they got damage. They have a fast repair, I believe, so you would be tending to use that one for sure. We know that Kevin took a bit of a nasty whack on the front of his car.
Kevin is pitting for a full stop. Actually, no, half of what a full stop would normally be. So 12 seconds I'm assuming that'll be a fast repair plus fuel, maybe, if he changed tires in the previous stop.
That's one for Gerald. You should be one of our producer and race driver. What do you think, Gerald?
Gonna be honest, you're gonna have to ask the question again. I was looking at buttons.
Oh yeah, he's pushing all the buttons in the trailer at the back here. But you might be pushing some more buttons because all the buttons being pushed. These battles currently on track at the moment, as you can see, and we are expecting him at some point heading in. Yep.
I mean, Castellani's actually trying to make his way through now, and in terms of a result, by the way, have you noticed that the Leo Racing team around Suzuka have not had a great turnout, which maybe goes to show the strength of the competition is really starting to heat up. I mean, Shanto, all the way up in P2, he's gained 7 positions off of his starting position right now. And it's looking like it's pretty dominant too.
It just the Italians aren't agreeing with the food here in Japan. They just don't like it. They're like, "Where's our pizza? Where's our pasta? Where's all
this fish?"
Yeah, they're like. So perhaps you don't know. Japanese are known for their famous food, and of course the Italians are known for their famous food. So that's the showdown that you're gonna have here.
Favorite move. Here we go. Is it gonna be up the inside? Indeed it is. That is Alessandro Izzo making a move on the Alfaria, and the oh no, poor who's that? That's I believe that's the Greek driver. I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now. Petros. Sorry. So yeah. Petros getting in the middle of the way of a hypercar battle that ends up almost becoming a sandwich as they try to make their way through. So
what does amaze me real quick on that other subject is that, you know, in iRacing, you've seen all the massive iRacing events around, including this league and other leagues. You don't see many Japanese drivers, unfortunately, and they can drive. We know that. They're very capable. I just don't see them here in the esports world as much. Well, I have to investigate that. If anybody knows, let us know in the chat.
I think a lot of that is mainly due to the time zone difference, right? I think, but even
in the 24-hour events and stuff like that, you don't see a lot of the Japanese teams as top splits and things. Anyway, that's what I'm just surprised at.
Yeah, I mean, maybe their focus is too busy on the real thing and you know, less of the sim stuff. But I mean, in terms of other esports events, I'm going to mention a completely different game here. So iRacing, please don't shoot me. GT Sport and the GT Cup has a lot of Japanese drivers racing who are very, very talented and very, very quick. Couple of names, I believe Takumi Saito and
ex-Formula 1 driver too. Takumi, is it?
I think potentially I'm getting the name wrong, and it could have been Daigo instead. I get a little bit confused between a couple of drivers, but there are a lot of very quick drivers in the GT Sport world.
Okay, so this is probably on a different sim, really. That's what you're mentioning as well, too, as Tom goes in. Look at this traffic jam right here. Oh, where do you go? You've got different classes, of course, battling it out too for now, including a GT3 was also in the mix there, and see the flashing lights to say, getting out of our way. Oh, 3 abreast here.
I mean, if you're in the hypercars right now, you cannot be making a move on anyone. You just have to just leave it. Just try to survive, because otherwise you're going to end up compromising yourself, and just get through. Get past the GT3, get past the LMP2 that's ahead of that, and then fight again. Just don't risk anything, because right now, it's not worth it. Boys, it's not worth it. Just relax.
Well, and plus they're going to remember, oh, there it is to go wide. They're going to remember they've got a pit stop coming up soon too, so you don't want to be spinning in the wrong direction soon. That pit stop's going to shake things up a little bit, but it depends on who's going to be the one calling him in first in that battle, isn't it? Because Neil is the one that has the 2 cars behind, so Neil drives in the pit lane. I probably expect the other 2 drivers behind to jump in as well.
And I believe, by the way, Benjamin has actually managed to get past Robin. I'm not sure if he did that just in the pit stops, but he has actually gotten past and is now on his way to try and hunt down, I believe, Connor Gibb. Is Connor right now behind Aiden Young, or... Yes, that battle is very close. So, as we see, one of the Leo Racing drivers do come into the pit lane. for his second stop. So Connor Gibb and Aiden Young, the two No Limit Sim Racing drivers, still battling incredibly close. And I do wonder whether or not Connor is actually just sitting behind and letting Aiden just, you know what, mate, we're about the same pace. I'll just let you get third. I'm happy to take a P4. I've had a good race so far. I'm not too worried about it.
Stretching the fuel up, perhaps for... When did they box? Just having a look at the lap.
They pit. I'm pretty sure these two pit around the same lap.
Okay. Yeah, but they got to go for another box, don't they? They can't stretch at the end now.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens here, of course.
So Alessandro, that came in there for the Leo Racing team, has come back out behind Kevin and Tom, who've made their second pit stop. So Kevin essentially at the moment is very close in the back of Brian, but in the net, he wouldn't have to say the net lead to be one to kind of figure out the time difference there. As you can see, probably about 40, 50 seconds down from the race leader. And all those drivers above Kevin have to box. They have to go back and visit pit road and talk to Barney, the flag waver.
Yeah, I mean, official, by the way. That's his official name, isn't it, Barney?
It is Barney, yeah.
That is iRacing canon now, and you know, it's always nice to give him a bit of a wave back too. If you're racing,
I'd like to see Barney race one day. Never really seen him on track. But
Kevin Steppen going very wide there to avoid Tom Dadswell. I don't know. Was Kevin just letting him through, or was that damage that made him go that wide? Because
it's interesting because Kevin's already made a pit stop, right? Yeah. Well, then again, as you're seeing, that is so Neil's in. Well, that's the battle between Tom and Kevin, correct? And so they've already made their pit stops. So that essentially, as we know, Wonko's come in and out and is in P4. So he's in the net lead of this race currently on pit stops.
But I believe by the time João Paulo pits, I believe he will come out ahead of João. I would imagine anyway, because it's almost
23-second gap, doesn't it, to Daniel?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be that sort of level of difference. I mean, Joanto's got, I'm pretty sure, it's almost 31
the leaders come in,
seconds.
So you'll find out in a second.
Yeah. 31-second gap, I believe, between the two of them before he pits. So let's see whether or not 31 seconds is big enough, as Daniel Segley, unless he comes into the pit lane this time by, will take the lead of this race for the first time. And he does not pit just yet, so going on for one more lap. Obviously has to take a bit less fuel doing it that way, as Brian Loynes behind also pits from P3. We'll see where he comes out, but João Paulo is already back out onto the circuit, quite far ahead of Joanto already, so that battle, unfortunately, I don't think is one that's going to develop, but even still, nice to see Joanto doing so well up there, up near the top. Alessandro trying to hunt down Fabio Ponta right now, but not really able to find the time just yet, as the LMP2 of Matteo might make things a little bit more interesting. Crash here, Lorenzo Castellani, so another Leo Racing driver who has not had a good day, actually behind the LMP2s now at this point, in terms of on track as well, thanks to a spin through spoon.
No, I don't know. I think he slapped the brakes because he was too quickly approaching the GT3 car and snapped the brake and had a spin, because they're not allowed to say the N-word. The net, you know what I'm going to say. Net code. We're not supposed to say net code, apparently.
Yeah.
iRacing did not like that, but anyway, that's the first and last time I'll say that word. I didn't want people to think about the N-word as being something else, that's all.
Yes,
But-
yes. Gotta
Yeah, well,
clarify
now
which
they are.
one we have. Obviously, the thing that determines whether or not you crash in an online race the piece of code responsible for that one and controlling, you know, the network side of things, you know, often referred to as netcode because of that, causing a little bit of an issue maybe between the two drivers, but I don't think it was anything malicious, of course. Potentially just that wasn't expecting them to be as slow through Spoon. Maybe just not as much experience dealing with the GT3s around this circuit when in a hypercar. And, you know, the lack of experience is certainly showing today, and it means that Lorenzo has been pushed all the way down behind Dylan van der Lans. So Dylan van der Lans is not only leading the LMP2s, but he's also 10th in hypercar if he converted classes, which wouldn't even be last. So there you go. That's how close the two are on circuit in terms of lap times, is that if there's a hypercar not having a great day, LMP2s are going to be right up there as well. And Benjamin, we saw him, or at least we heard that he got past Robin Dumal, and he's looking very racy still. Is he going to try and make a move on Connor Gibb just yet? No, saving it potentially for a lap or two to come. Maybe just sizing him up.
10 minutes to go, so now you're gonna see those gloves come off, as you'd mentioned. We thought it was going to get a little bit punchy towards the end, but it certainly is. At least between these two drivers, currently battling it out for the P4 position for the LMP2 class.
They do all need to stop one more time though in LMP2, so back on up the inside here into the Casio triangle on Simone, I believe, and yep. That is move done and dusted. Ferrari overtaking the glorified Audi, and
here we go.
Move said and done.
Wait for that one.
Gianpaolo,
yeah, we got to remember that Simone got burgled on the Senate floor before when he got just mugged by a group of cars there and managed to survive that one. So he probably would get one of the drivers of the day from us there, Simone.
It's been an unfortunate race, you would have to say, in terms of the traffic. It's brutal around Suzuka. Is probably the only way you could describe it. Is if you catch a GT3 anywhere around here, you are going to be rather slow in either the hypercar or the LMP2 class. And Kevin Stam, by the way, looking to try and get into a battle with Daniel.
Yeah, because Daniel just boxed and came back out, so that's where he's come back out in front of the boss man, and has to hold off the boss man for about 8 minutes and change now.
Well, we saw, I believe it was Daniel who made the move on Kevin, similar in fashion to what Sophia did, but up the inside instead of round the outside of 130R, as the door does get shut in Kevin Stam's face once again, but by a GT3 this time, saying, no, go up the inside of the hairpin rather than round the outside. And well communicated, at least from the GT3. Just taking the racing line before Kevin got close. And
Dylan's in now for the LMP2s, as you said. That's the second round of pit stops now.
Yeah, James Eben will take the race lead unless he pits, and indeed he does. Aiden Young also pitting. Now we'd expect Connor to come in as well. Does Robin Dumal? No.
Yeah, and after Robin, Benjamin's already made the pit stop, so that's it. Robin's the only one that stayed out now. Oh, Robin comes in, so that's it. Yeah, everybody else behind them in that class have already made their second pit stop.
I'm going to be curious to see where does Benjamin come out in all of this, because Benjamin right now, when it was, I believe he was behind Connor, but he was very close. As James Ebram comes out off the pit lane in P2, he is 11 seconds behind. Ben does manage to get past Robin Dumal and gets in front of Connor Gibb, more importantly. So Benjamin now in P4 and potentially in a position to fight Aiden Young for P3 as well. Here is Benjamin, and right up in front, I believe that is that Tom Dadswell in the hypercar there? Between these two? I can't quite see.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think Tom has the green livery.
It's either Tom or, I'm trying to think, is Brian the other driver for the altitude team in hypercar? I forget. Someone in chat might have to remind me. It's P6 in class, so that is Brian currently between these two LMP2 drivers. And oh no, some GT3, and once again, guess who?
Yeah, it's just like a caught in the wrong place every single time, but doing a good job trying to get out of the way as much as possible. So, as I said, hats off to that driver, especially because this battle's brewing, isn't it? And these drivers now know you got 6 minutes and change to go in this race, and
it's flat out,
obviously judging that they're doing just sub 2 minute laps. So yeah, you get about 3 or 4 at most.
And I mean, Benjamin has been fighting so hard after that battle he had with Robin. And I mean, he's been fighting so hard to get back to this position, to get into a position where he can then get into the podium. I honestly think Ben has been one of the drivers of the day in LMP2 for me personally. I think he has driven his absolute wheels off that thing. And, you know, he potentially is going to upset Aiden Young's day by, you know, overtaking him right here, right now. Does he go for the move into T1? No, he does not. He just makes Aiden think about it.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but because Aiden's coming off a really fiery, good couple of races there. And Aiden wants another podium up for grabs. The only problem is the Flying Frenchman is on his tailpipe and coming thick and fast. But Aiden's not going to make that easy. That's for guaranteed. Dylan once again looking pretty solid there to take another race win in his class. Of course, the Dutch driver. It's another Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Dylan van der Lands is one of those drivers, I think, that has proven himself to be one of the fastest P2 drivers that we have in anti-stall so far. Once the Leo Racing team have said their bit and moved up or moved down in class, depending on how you want to see it. You know, they've sort of... Dylan van der Lands has been the one to take that step. You know, he was battling with the Leo guys last season, so still keeping that pace up. And James Ebram almost has seemed to have dropped off in comparison to where he was last season versus Dylan. So... you know, it's nice to see some new faces up near the top as well. You know, for example, Aiden Young and Benjamin and Connor, all three of those drivers, very, very quick on their own right, as we start to see Vessel Bukema really getting into a groove around Suzuka. And maybe Suzuka, for the No Limits team, is one of their favorite tracks, because all three of the No Limits drivers seem to be doing incredibly well around here. You know, even in comparison to where they usually are.
Yeah, you're right, because some of the drivers really do enjoy some of these tracks. And they're going to be enjoying an overtake at the moment. Will Mark be enjoying this attack right now from Vessel and hold him off? We saw it before. Aiden was under attack, and he's now held off a very quick Benjamin. So this is another battle that's brewing. But look at this, a battle is also brewing, remember, for in the hypercar class, because Tom is really, really spicy on the back of one. And that's a battle for your podium positions there too.
Oh dear.
Yes.
Traffic once again getting involved between this battle between Tom Dadswell and Juanto. Around the outside, can Tom Dadswell make it work? Unfortunately not. And, you know, if these two keep fighting, Daniel is looking in the mirrors. Yeah, I was going to say,
Daniel's coming to play. So Daniel's still like, I'm smelling a podium here, guys. And time's not on our side, but hey, you know what? You got traffic to get past. Make one little mistake right now, try to seize that opportunity.
2 more laps.
And it's probably pretty good at the moment to not see a podium completely dominated by the Italians. And of course, there's nothing you have to worry about our race leader, but this is a battle for the rest of the nations in the Hypercar Series.
I mean, it's so close between these three. Tom can feel a move coming. He's going to try and send it as we jump back on board with Andrea Frasinetti. Don't actually see the result of the initial attack from Tom Dadswell, but very close.
Look at the three here. This is it. We could see a three-way into turn one. Not quite sure whether or not Daniel can get someone up in the inside middle. No, he won't.
For it. He's just holding off. Yeah. Daniel was just holding off there, I think, not really wanting to make the move, hoping that Tom would make the move on Juanto and he could just follow through and then start pushing Tom afterwards. But for now, quite comfortable to sit behind Tom, wait for Tom to make the move on Juanto and force Juanto to lose 2 positions here, which would be a little upsetting from Juanto's point of view because he's driven a great race. But I mean, you know, you got to give credit to Tom and got to give credit to Daniel when credit is due. You know, these drivers have been driving really well this race, and they're making these moves work when they can. And Daniel potentially seeing some great strategy options here. Potentially,
I think it's Daniel's maybe last time around. We'll get a little quick replay of what's happened back here, the GT3 class.
Into 130.
That may be somebody's self-spin, I'd say, here, because they're pretty far. Yeah, there it is.
Big twitch on the exit.
Yeah. That's been catching some of those drivers napping on that corner so far.
Rejoined the circuit as well. Very dangerous.
This is it, I'd have to say, because now you're getting about a minute left. And especially with the Italian driver way up the road, almost 30 seconds. This is it. Probably Tom's last chance to do anything about it. And Daniel, of course, lurking in the background, waiting for a mistake for them.
One more tour around the island we go, and Tom Dadswell needs to make a move here on Duranto if he wants to get this P2. Daniel needs to make a move on both drivers if he wants to get P2 or a podium position.
I think just sit back there if you're Daniel. Just wait for if they maybe take each other out. Hopefully not, of course, because we don't go an hour into this race and see it all go. Well, we do want to see it brew into the last corner, don't we? That's entertainment, but we'll see what the drivers feel about that one later if we ever speak to them in the interview room. But this is it. I have to say, it's the Brit versus the Colombian and the other Brit lurking in the background. That is your podium positions for two of those drivers.
Messed up the S's a little bit, and it's going to allow Joanto to really start extending a gap. Joanto nailing the S's as Tom Dadswell overdriving a little bit, allowing Daniel to get back through, but Daniel's not quite able to hold on as easy. Joanto being pressured here. There is an LMP2 up ahead, I believe.
Yep, there is. That may be the puzzle to the piece of the puzzle.
No, he's pulled off the track. He's seen 3 hypercars in the relative and gone, nah, I don't want any part of that. Already.
This is it. This could be the final opportunities.
Into 130R, you've got to make the move. You've got to go attack mode. ERS, you've got to go overtake ERS if you have the option. You've got to just send everything here, Tom. If you want to get P2, now's the opportunity. You've got to make the move through 130R or through the Casio triangle, much like Sophia did to Kevin, much like Daniel did to Kevin. Can Daniel do the move again on Tom, potentially? This is going to be it. This is going to be your final corners of the race. Can any of these 3 drivers end up?
No, but Daniel might make a run.
Daniel's looking for one.
Yes.
Oh,
no, he got tucked in behind.
Not quite close enough.
He'll settle that one. And we do apologize. We do miss our race leader, of course. Gianapolo had the number 3 car had won, but sorry, John, but it's because everybody was the battle behind here at the moment. So the Colombian does hold off the fierce and feisty Tom, who finishes on the 3rd place of the podium.
Their headlights. I don't know if that's just in congratulations to both drivers, because that was incredible to witness there. And Schwanto, is that his first podium here?
No, I don't think so, but we'll hopefully have a bit of a chat to the Colombian driver. But
at least in hypercar, potentially.
It's his first podium this season, but obviously he's...
Oh, wow, okay, great. And the LMP2 class, further down the road, how's that one panned out? I think that was pretty much even givens there for Dylan, James, and then Aiden Young. Unfortunately, Ben did catch up, but wasn't able to make a move in the end. Connor Gibb in P5 and Robin Dumal in P6. And then for the GT3s, we do have Fabio Ponta, Alessandro, and Luigi Nespolino finishing up the podium. So Alea Racing dominated GT3 class once more, with a few drivers actually being out of the race. Yeah, but they didn't dominate the hypercar class that they usually do. So that's a bit of a switcheroo, as you said, not agreeing so much in Suzuka for the Italian club, but definitely agreeing with the GT3s. And Harkin, of course, just missed out on a podium, and we've seen the flying Norwegian been putting in some good performances, but unfortunately today could not quite get the bubbly stuff on the champagne on the podium. I'd say very soon in the chat, driver of the day. You start picking driver of the day in any of the classes. Any of your drivers. A move of the day, I'd have to say probably move of the day was Sophia's one, right? I mean, that was just one of the best overtakes you can see around Suzuka.
I mean, arguably this was, I mean, in terms of as a race, it was one for the record books, because that hypercar finish, that LMP2 battle, all the way through, I mean, that was definitely good viewership and good watching. We hope, obviously, everyone in the chat enjoyed that as well. Feel free to follow along, as we will go through the race results in our hypercar class. You can see the standings as it is on your screens, with João Paulo taking the win for the Leo Racing team, followed off by Joanto in P2. Tom Dadswell P3 with Daniel Segley in P4. Kevin Stam taking P5 with Brian there in P6. Neil Ferrier P7. Sophia Ridpath P8. Lorenzo Castellani P9. Alessandro Izzo P10. Alessio Bernardini in P11. And Andrea Frasinetti never making the start, I think.
Yeah, not sure, but you got the LMP2 class to go through. Our fantastic commentator, Mr. Ava.
Well, Dylan Vanderlands will take your win from James Ebram. Aiden Young finishing in P3, almost being challenged by Benjamin. I'm sure Ben would be wanting this race to have been one lap longer, so that he at least could have made that move, or at least attempted that move on Aiden Young. Connor Gibb, P5. Robin Dumal, P6. Vessel Bekema, P7. Mark Hutchinson, P8, with Roberto in P9. Matteo Lamoret in P10, finishing out the LMP2 results. Then we move on to the GT3s, of course, and it was a rather close finish for the Leo Racing Team 1-2 in Fabio Ponta and Alessandro, and Luigi Nespolino finishing it up for the Leo Racing 1-2-3 with Hakon Grebstad P4, Alvaro Gutierrez in P5, Simeone in P6, Ferran P7, Petros P8, with Stefan unfortunately not finishing the race, and same with Lars Van Ren. I think didn't even start.
Yeah, Neil, as I said, Neil out there, rest your back, my friend. Back pains. He's going to be wanting to climb out of that racing rig right now going, oh, I feel like I'm an 80-year-old man. I've done my back out a few times and I feel like that. But, you know, efforts, isn't it? As solid to get in there and do that when you're in pain. And it happens with a lot of drivers, actually, believe it or not. We don't see it because we can't see them on the screen. But I've seen drivers racing with all sorts of things. I've had drivers racing with, like, broken wrists before and ankles sprained, all sorts of jazz. That goes to show you what's happened and does happen and continues to happen here at Eddie Store Racing. And very, very soon, you'd have to say, Eva, we have to definitely speak to some of these gladiators and Centaurians and about their racing.
Well, Schwanto is currently in the waiting room, so we'll hear from P2 in the hypercar class, and a podium I'm sure Schwanto is very happy with. Schwanto, welcome in, my friend. P2 in the hypercar class. I'm pretty sure the first podium you've had this season, if I'm not mistaken. How does that one feel for yourself?
Oh, amazing. I didn't expect that P2 in this track due to the difficult light conditions and how to manage the traffic. Well, I think my pace was not good as the leaders, but I keep the car on track, and that's all that matters in fact in this track. And I'm very, very, very happy. And at the end, I have a tough fight with two other guys. I was sweating a lot, but very, very, very happy for the result. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, my friend, you gained 7 places to finish that P2?
Yeah, I think I qualified
Wow.
P9. I think, yeah, that's true.
Yep, that was the most gain, I think. Well, maybe Daniel back in P4, but he didn't get the podium. So that's what a gain, mate. Colombia is back. I'm telling you, I'm believing for you, mate. I'm just across the border from you in Panama. It's good to see that we've chatted before. You're on the up and up and up now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to know the car because I prefer open wheel cars, and sometimes it's very difficult for me to get to the limit to this car. But well, a little by little, I think I'm getting to it. Yeah.
Of course, with the race itself, I mean, you say that you didn't necessarily feel like you had the pace to compete with the leaders, but you kept it on track, and ultimately I feel like the story of this race was just how difficult it was as a multi-class circuit. I'm not sure as a driver if you can give us sort of your thoughts as to, how would you mentally deal with, catching all the different cars, and did you sort of have an idea partway through the race as to what you were going to do when you caught a GT3 or an LMP2, or sort of what was going through your mind during these sort of moments?
Yeah, when catching the GT3 cars, I was thinking, I hope that I won't catch them on the SS, because it's very difficult to overtake there, and we lost a lot of time there. And in the other part of the circuit is quite easy, but in that part is so tough. With the LMT2, it's not so tough in the SS sections, because they are also fast there. So it was quite easy to overtake the LMT2s, but with the GT3s, yes, it's mostly that part of the circuit that I was afraid of. Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately everything went your way, and you were able to pick up a really nice P2, and one that I'm sure you're going to try and take through into the next race. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Anyone you want to thank?
Well, I think all the drivers on track were very pretty clean when overtaking. So, thanks for all the guys. Yeah.
GG Junko, they're the 27 machine finishing his first podium of the season in P2. A little bit out of the range of the Italian driver on, believe it or not, this is National Pizza Day. I didn't even realize. So the Italian driver did top the class there for the hypercars. Well, and we'll have a nice chat, mate, as we fly across the Pacific back to your Colombia and Panama for me. So, GG's, mate.
Thank you very much.
We're going to hear from James Ebram as well in the LMP2 class, picking up a P2 that, I mean, James, you got to admit, you got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. I feel like I could have given Dylan a bit of a harder time of it. I kind of got a little bit screwed up at the start with, obviously, team chat, letting everybody know when they were going, because got pretty swarmed by the green machines at the beginning and lost a place there, and got held up by Connor for a few laps before I had to really kind of muscle my way past. And then a mistake later on, which just kind of put me too far back and lost my rhythm a bit. But P2's fine, you finished where I started, so I can't be too upset. And I do have COVID, so I can't, I was actually pretty tired by the end of that.
James, we banned COVID, mate. It's over. Everybody's gone through that a couple of years ago, all right? Now we're all on the up and up. We're all healthy again. You can't have that. So that was good, but...
My first time getting it. My first time getting it, so...
Oh, is it? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
welcome to the club, mate, my friend. I'm pretty sure everybody else has ticked that off the box, but it's good to see you are. I mean, obviously, one of the other drivers out there was talking about having back problems and all that sort of jazz. But yeah, lonely race, you'd have to say, because Dylan was pretty much unreachable for you today, right?
We had similar pace, so he was reachable, but traffic and his teammate holding me up for a few laps probably put that any real, unless if I nailed every single lap, I probably wasn't really going to take the win, and getting tired towards the end, so I lost a little bit of pace there.
And of course, you mentioned the fact that, as the race goes on, these 1 hour sort of races do take a little bit of a toll, and especially around a circuit like Suzuka, obviously with all the traffic involved as well, being in the middle class, I'm sure there was quite a lot to think about. Did you find yourself sort of getting mentally exhausted towards the end of the race, as well as sort of, well, maybe not physically, but definitely sort of feeling it a little bit? Was there any sort of strategy you had in mind for sort of the multi-class aspect of it? Was it just sort of, I need to survive, and if I do that, I've done well?
I mean, survival is always the good thing, isn't it? It doesn't matter how short or long the race is, surviving is ultimately the goal, If you want to finish first you have to finish, right?
Yeah.
In terms of traffic, no real strategy. I knew that LMDHs were going to lap us once, so I wasn't really fussed about that. I did find it annoying that they always tried to get you in the braking zone, and LMP2s are better under brakes than LMDHs. I really wish people would understand that. Just get me out of the corner, because that's where this car's weak compared to the LMDHs. So many times going into corners, I had LMDHs just trying to outbrake me, and it was really very annoying. It cost me so much time, and it probably cost them time as well. But I don't understand why they don't just like sit back, follow me through the corner, because the cornering speed isn't massively different either, especially in some of these corners around here. The S's they're a little bit faster, but not by a huge amount. But the GTs, yeah, they're not too hard to pass. Again, unlike the LMDH to LMP, LMP2 to GT, you can outbrake them, and you can get them on corner exit, and you can get them around the outside of the S's, so they're a lot easier to pass the GTs.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw quite a few times that the LMPs, the LMP2 battles were very sort of backed up from GT3 traffic in some corners. For example, the Degners, one of the main causes for concern, I'm sure. You would have, you know, if you catch a GT3 through Degners, you're basically waiting until the exit of Degner 2 and making the move into the hairpin instead. But, you know, in terms of the race overall, it was a P2 that, well earned, of course, but I'm sure your eyes are now looking forward to the next race, right?
What is the next race? I don't even know.
It is.
Miller?
Potentially?
Nobody ever checks their boarding passes, do they?
No. Road Atlanta is the next one. Then it's Imola.
Chaos. I'm looking forward to Imola, not so much Road Atlanta.
We end the season at Interlagos, so
yeah, I'm not sure I'm looking forward to that one either, but you know, at least Imola's on the cards, and I do love Imola, so I'm looking forward to that. Road Atlanta, chaos, and it is going to be chaos. The sort of S's after turn one is going to be a mess. I can see a lot of impatienceness, not a word, but I'm gonna go with it. I can see that happening, especially LMDH to GT3. I think that's going to be a real sort of point of a lot of frustrations for everyone, I think.
Well, always nice to hear your thoughts, of course, James. And as always, before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Neil for sticking in there, even with back issues, because it's definitely never comfortable when you've got a little bit of you're not 100%. So I'm going to give him a shout out today.
There we go. So shout out from James to Neil. You know, congratulations, Neil, for at least being able to finish the race. Because it's not easy at all. But James, congratulations on the P2, mate, and I'm sure we'll see you, hopefully, next time out around Road Atlanta. Just saying, maybe a bit chaotic of a race, so lots to talk about, I'm sure.
Lots to discuss during it, for sure, yeah.
Cheers, mate. And, Biggles, I believe that is, unfortunately, all that we have time for. I would love to hear from the other LMP2 drivers, but unfortunately we just don't quite have enough time. So thank you for everyone for hanging out with us, making it always worth the time here at Anti-Stall Racing. Biggles, is there any sort of final thoughts you have before we end off the stream?
Let's wrap it up, of course, and we'll go have some, let's go down to the local sake bar there and take some sake shots, of course, to chill after this one. It's been fantastic. Of course, Anti-Stall Racing always produces the IMSA series powered by iOverlay. Don't forget, of course, Rogue Energy will fuel you up there. M Garage for setups and digital motorsports. It's been, don't forget, of course, our fantastic producer of Gerald in the trailer at the back there pushing all the buttons. And of course, our fantastic stewarding team at the moment. I'm just trying to remember that. I keep forgetting. I feel sorry about that one. Somebody enlightens me real quick there who our stewarding man was back in the other trailer. Sorry? George, of course. George, sorry, apologies. I forgot you again. But I didn't forget everybody in the chat that's been out there supporting everybody and their drivers and their teams and Anti-Stall. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button. I only see 6 of you hit that thumbs up button. and subscribe for more of the actions. Hit the notifications and the bells because we got more racing coming up next week. Of course, 2 of the racing series. That's it from myself and the mighty Ava. Have a good night. Take care and stay safe.